Welcome to the What's Up Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts, Mattson.
Better read than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification button. Tell a friend about us. Tell everybody about us. Pray about us. That's fine too. I don't know. I'm running out of extra people to have them tell about. So I didn't feel it was necessarily appropriate to say tell God about us, but I mean, pray about us. That's fine too.
There you go. Pray to us.
I mean, if you do that kind of thing.
Like, wow, Jay, that's rather nice of you, being an agnostic, atheist, either or.
Throwing things out there from the ether. We are here to talk about episode 5 of the Last of Us television show. And Fan Master already here talking about Let's Go best episode, and I knew he would like that. He's been talking about wanting to talk about Henry and Sam for 4 of previous episodes plus some gameplay. So I think it was a great episode. I want to get your guys' thoughts in general, because I'm not so certain that I'm going to have the friendliest. Like, Fan Master may not come watch this after I talk about this episode. So I'm just kidding. It's not bad.
I felt kind of bad for Sam. Poor kid's deaf and has leukemia.
Yeah.
Dude, he got dealt the short end of the deck.
Yeah. And he was born in Kansas City.
Yeah. So there's like 3 strikes, you're out right there. But I liked it. I mean, the ending was my favorite part, but also terrifying, we'll have to say. But I liked it. I didn't have any problems with it.
And by ending, you mean like the ending in the town part, right? Like, or are you talking the ending of the episode?
No, ending in the town part, the climactic scene.
Yeah. Where the infected come climbing out of the ground. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Except for that one, like, 6-year-old clicker. God damn, that scared me.
Yeah, that was creepy. That was very creepy. What about you, Mattson?
I mean, like I've said in many of these episodes, I don't remember a lot about the game. I definitely remember some things. And so whatever you're about to tell us, Jay, you'll probably, I don't have the opinions that you do there. Did I like what this episode was and how they showed the relationships, and especially Joel's kind of evolution with Ellie and what he was thinking about towards the end? Yeah, I did. I liked how it kind of reinforced what we're going to expect moving forward. Did I love the end of this? And it actually showed what the infected really looked like and the damage that they could do, because up to this point, really haven't seen it. We just know it happened. But you're always left wondering, like, well, the humans had bombs and guns and all these things. Like, how did it happen? And that one little scene, like, pretty quickly could tell, hey, even if you have all these guns and things, they're moving lightning fast. There's a ton of them. Just going to overrun them. So I enjoyed seeing that part of it, like they talked about in the after the credits with the producers, about showing what the actual kind of gameplay was like. That when we've been seeing you play on Tuesdays, what's it like to fight one of these things? And it's not pretty. And I really liked the relationship between Henry and Sam and the actors there. And I personally like the emotions that they brought and the sense of realism there. So for me, who's not like a hardcore Last of Us, but has played the first game, I'm still riding the wave, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. But I'm very curious to hear our resident tattooed himself, Last of Us lover, JJ's opinion.
Yeah, I'll jump in here in a second. Yeah, Fan Master, I agree. I think everybody's pretty happy that Kathleen bit the dust. Charles, what an episode. Absolutely lots to talk about here with this one. It was sad, Fan Master, when Sam was under the car screaming. That's directly out of the game. There's a moment where they're hiding under a car, and you can see him kicking and fighting him off. And hi, Gray, welcome. Yeah, the child clicker was freaky AF. She's a cord. Oh, the actress, the one that contortionist in real life. Well, that makes sense because she did that little weird flip thing, and I was like, no, thanks.
Alec,
Yeah.
I know you didn't feel comfortable in that scene.
No, kind of answers the question Sam asked about do you keep some of yourself when you turn into a clicker? Apparently you do.
Oh no, Charles. I love it. I got a Kathleen tattoo. What should I do? Own that shit, dude. Own that shit. I love it. So look, of all the 5 episodes, here's the unfortunate part. There were chunks of this to me that I loved, right? But the changes that happen in this episode, the things that they change in this episode, I didn't love the changes per se. So like one of the big things for me is, and I get why they did it, like the whole condense down, because really, and I was telling you guys this before we started recording, went live, that they took basically 3 sections of this game and they combined it into 1 episode of the show. And most of it was pretty true to form for the most part. The thing that I didn't like the most is this section in the underground when they're playing and there's a soccer thing and there's like this whole, it looks like a whole community. Like you don't get a sense of the way that they explained it. Like they talk about people, there were tons of people that founded communities and they kept them safe, whatever. This community in and of itself, when you're playing the game, is this giant storyline almost of its own. And you start to get the feeling of where it almost, because you're like, why didn't people band together? Like that's for me, like I start thinking about, and I still like in situations where we watch, zombie apocalypse, like this one where it's an infection or some sort of pandemic disease, things like that. Like, why don't people band together more? Well, my cynicism of human nature is one reason, because we're assholes. But 2, it shows, and that's what I loved about that section, is it shows that you can't. Like people try, and it always ends up failing to a certain degree because people just are either shitheads or they're not that smart. So it's just a tough situation, but I don't like that they took that aspect out of it. And then I think, to me, the whole Kathleen revenge plot with Henry and Sam, and again, I get to a degree why they did it, but I didn't enjoy the payoff to it. Like to me, that was a miss when it came to making that change, because you have this climactic piece at the end where there's this showdown more or less with Kathleen and Henry stands up and he's doing his thing. Like I was like, this is anticlimactic. The best part about this is when the clickers and the infected come running out of the ground. But we've built up for an episode and a half, almost 2 episodes of this hunt for Henry and Sam, only to find out she's just bitter and grumpy. And like, she didn't even lead the revolution. Technically, she took over from her brother. And yeah, she's more ruthless and she was pissed, which allowed her to not try to do it kindly and ended up leading it into the happen. But it just didn't, to me, it didn't add value to the rest of the story to me, which is Henry and Sam and Joel allowing this girl, Ellie, to allow him to connect him with other people besides just her, which he never thought or had never done up to this point. So to me, it just felt forced. Like that story, I think they could have done this kind of like the game, just have this brutal society where you don't even have to meet Kathleen. There has to be no motivation or understanding of why these people are terrible. They're just hunting down tourists like they do in the game. These people come in, they want their shit. They want to take everything they have and kill them and just live in their society. To me, that made a lot more sense than when we added in Kathleen. I just feel like we didn't need Kathleen. I think it muddied the water, to be honest. So that's mine. Now, outside of that whole Kathleen thing, this episode was dope as hell. The freaking when the bloater came crawling out of the ground and he comes running and he rips off the one dude's
face. I know you like that. That was true to form in the game.
Yeah, and Alec got to see that in the playthrough because I let the big old freaking bloater get me in the basement. And it was an exact replica of the kill. So I loved that. And we got some Fan Master, no spoilers on this one, so I'm going to leave that comment. But yes, we will get to go to. I'll leave it at we're going to Jackson. Charles, they mentioned they felt they couldn't effectively show the underground groups, and instead they just decided to show the aftermath of the few nights of story. Yeah, I agree. I just think if we were running from the whole city of Kansas City and get out, and then we have just that time to walk through, find a letter. That's all I needed. We spent so much time with Ellie and Sam. I think we've done a good enough job showing that relationship. Let Joel find the letter that or find, well, I don't think they could have shown the group of kids. That one's a rough scene, but you find a series of letters talking about how they developed the community. But that's just me being a gaming nerd at that point. But I do agree with Gray. Kathleen's comeuppance felt flimsy aside from the clickers. Yeah, it just felt like we put this character in to give them a leader, and there it was. So that's my only gripe. It's the first time I've had a gripe in this show.
I honestly, JJ, I'm not surprised. Like, I expected you to say that about Kathleen once they lean into it more. I'd be curious about people that haven't really played the game, that are just watching this to watch, if they feel as strongly as you do. I dare to say many of them probably don't, because they don't know. They don't even know that she's not in the part of this. And so I wonder what, like, just a common watcher of a good TV show, if they would say yes or no. Because I do, having played the game, they didn't really need it. And I tend to agree with you, but I'm definitely not as a strong opinion as you. Like, I was okay with it. But I'd be curious to know what some of that, like maybe you already said it, maybe I'm already forgetting my memory. Did you mind her as much?
I hated her guts, but mostly because she was annoying as hell. I didn't mind too much with her being the leader, and I kind of liked what they did with making Henry's collaboration as he sold out her brother, who was the leader of the resistance. Because that made her personal vendetta a little bit more explainable. Because last episode, especially, you kind of get the feel that nobody really knows why she's so, gung-ho about getting Henry. Or that Joel and Ellie are actually mercenaries that Henry somehow hired in the middle of the apocalypse to come mess up Kansas City and her new thing. So I like that kind of playoff where it is a personal vendetta. But as far as the Kathleen character, she drove me nuts. 100%.
Here's a good point from Charles. So he haven't played the game, so he's okay with Kathleen here. So it's a good point. Like, you don't know what you don't know, and because I do know, like, this whole section of area is one of my favorite parts of the game. So it's been one of those ones, and I know for me it was, yeah. And just to continue that conversation along, even Gray, I think for Layman, they want to put a face to the bad guys to keep them from being mustached hurlers. I love that.
I'm stealing that. Sorry, Gray. That's another one of your things.
That is a good one.
Mustached twirlers.
To go back, we did some additional comments here. Fanmaster, Kathleen was so annoying. She always annoys when she got jump infected. I was like, let's go take that. Yeah, I think everybody can agree that we were all a little happy that, especially there at the end, because I will say that she did add to, like, just the stuff that she was saying about Sam and how she's like, I don't care, kids die all the time. I was like, woofty, that hurts. So yeah, nobody was sad when Kathleen went down, I don't think. Yeah, Gray, I think that's visually one of the coolest things we've seen is the infected coming out of that, because they just kept coming. And then when you thought they were done, here comes some more later on, and it was just so brutal. Yeah, loved it. Well,
I expected there to be more, because the way that they talked about Fedra and forcing him on the ground, and Sam said, 3 years ago they cleared it out, and you're like, well, you saw it in Joel's face. You're like, 3 years ago, bro. That's a long time for our old friends, the infected, to do their thing. So I just thought it was cool that they showed another scene of them all coming out again. And you're just like, oh, Kansas City is screwed. They're toast.
Yeah, talk about a Band-Aid solution to taking all the infected and sticking them underground.
Yeah,
that was peak, not my job.
Yeah. And the one good thing about it is we saw earlier in the city of Kansas City, that hole that was getting ready to collapse in that building. At least it happened on the outskirts. Like, so now all of them, hopefully, to their point, if they can get back to Kansas City, maybe they can keep everything blocked off, because they're all coming. If you can plug that hole.
Yeah, it didn't look like it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's getting back there.
It's like, Kansas City's going off the map. You can just put a big circle and say, gone.
Screwed. All for one woman's greed of vengeance. Yes, I have. Charles, the guy is an absolute monster. Like, he's not only is he huge, but he's ripped to shreds. Like, it's the guy's got like an 18 pack and just he's ridiculous. So yeah, very large human being. Alec, you're free to steal her.
Thanks, Gray.
And then yeah, it was brutal on the level of 28 days. I like that comparison because I like, you get a lot of zombie apocalypse stuff where the zombies move all slow and they're like, what's the big
Those
deal
are the kind
here?
of zombies I like.
Yeah, but these infected, I like one, and I don't call them zombies because they're technically not, but like I like these infected when they came running out, and we've seen how fast they can move, and yeah, it does remind me quite a bit of 28 Days. So, very good stuff. I told you guys though. I think I texted you, Alec, when somebody was like, "Man, I told you that story's brutal." With the Henry and Sam. It's a tough story to watch, even in the game, like because you get to know them and you actually start to like them to a degree, and then you don't like them for a certain reason, and then you do like them again, and then, man, it's just a tough way to figure
tough way
out.
to go.
Yeah. Well, and they tweaked a little so in the game he doesn't show Ellie that he's bitten because in the game he's not deaf, which I want to talk about in a second, but in the game he talks and he's not deaf and he doesn't have to use sign language and he's a little older. So he hides it from them that he was bitten in this section. And then they wake up and it plays similar to he's just kind of standing there and she goes to, "Hey, what's up?" And then he comes after her and then everything else plays out almost identically. So but it's just one of those moments where you're just like, that's the one thing about this game and this show is there's no, like every time you feel like there's some happy moment, you're like, yeah, they're successful. They got away. Things are looking up. It all goes to hell. And you're reminded that this is not a happy story.
This one hit home from Gray that just put this in that because I thought about it more. I was like, oh yeah, because this is a infected that couldn't hear before and now can't hear and had to be touched and then freaked out. And it didn't dawn on me till reading this.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. Oof. Thanks, Gray. Because that wasn't sad enough as well. No, but that's a good point. And it was a little weird in the game because he wasn't like it wakes up the same way. She wakes up, he's already infected and he's not looking at her, but she's not perfectly silent. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. But that did add that level. And I actually enjoyed the addition of him being deaf. Like I thought that was cool because it does add this different dynamic of this necessity to their relationship with Henry and Sam and that connection, because it's not like Sam can be as successful going off on his own in this type of world, right? And so I liked the addition of that and that change. I was very happy with that. I thought it added a very different dynamic and level and it also added to me the connection to Ellie and Sam, which is very good as well. Oh, Gray, we do know you like the Pandora's boxes. Charles, there you go. The scene where the infected came pouring out was a set that was built from scratch. All the cars, building, etc., in a very short amount of time. Really amazing details. They keep nailing.
Wait, so that was all practical?
Uh-huh. I mean, part of the swarm was they did add in some extra infected, like runners and stalkers that were coming out of the hole. But the ones that interacted with people that you saw were practical.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? And then all the set, like you were saying, was built around. And it's cool because, like I said, it almost mimics that part of the game to where, like, the layout of the houses that you're on, it looks like you're on this, like, cul-de-sac. Yeah, so very different in that cul-de-sac. Charles, great question. It's very different. So I thought it was – I understand why they did, partially because it was at night. And in the gameplay, you need this guy to be that good because otherwise you just take off running and kill everybody between where you're at and him to get to him so that you can get to the gun. But in the game, very different. It's that guy doesn't miss in the game.
I just thought it was funny that their sniper was like 150 years old.
Yeah.
Like, really, he's the best guy for the job here.
Yeah.
I liked it because it's probably more true to form real life. Just because you just got some ragtag group of people, not all of them are going to be hardcore like Perry. That was like ex-military. Not all ex-military are going to survive. You're going to have people that try to survive, do their thing. And I think in the real world application from video game to the show, more often than not, it is going to be someone that maybe they're an okay shot, but especially at nighttime doing that, like probably not that good. Because if they were as good as they were in the video games, we wouldn't really have a game.
Yeah. Well, and the video game's a little different. Like I said, this is played out to where they don't know that how they've escaped or where they're going. Like, they know to a degree, right? But in the game, you bust out in the middle of the night and they know you bust out. So they know where you're going. There's only one place you're going. So that guy's set up there and the group of people are set up there in that location in the game to cover that, right? And make sure that you don't escape. That's why it's the best guy up in the window. And I'm telling you, it's the most frustrating thing because you're like, I got to peek out to kill this other dude. And the next thing you know, I'm on my ass because I got hammered by this. He doesn't miss. It's silly. So, but I do see why they did it in the show because it was more of that's why there wasn't a group of people there yet. It was just some guy in his house, probably just defending his house, right? Yeah, Joe. I think Joe could win at any carnival game. What a name. Yeah, loved it. It's a lot harder I miss a lot of shots in that part because I'm like, oh shoot, and I know I'm not gonna run out of ammo, so it's good. Yeah, he looked at Joel with that 100-yard stare like ex-military. That's a good point, and he probably was. I just wasn't expecting him to be that old. I was like, oh damn, and I like the conversation piece too. He's like, don't do it, like just please don't, and then he does it anyway.
Well, I liked the fact that he was old because it was funny.
Oh.
First, you're expecting like this sniper and it's this old guy, but then it makes Joel's comment earlier hilarious when he's like, it's dark, this guy can't aim for shit. Like, I'll be fine. He goes running off to the house, and then you go into the house, and it's this like old man.
Yep. It's fair. It's fair.
So it explains it.
Yeah.
Joe, I had a question about that little piece of paper in the underground children's play area where we're playing soccer and stuff. What was that? The drawing and the words again. I didn't pick up on that Easter egg, but I know it was something.
Yeah, so that's the part I'm talking about. So like in the game, I was telling Alec that they took 3 sections of the game and condensed it into one episode. And I get why they did it. They're longer sections in the game. So you have the whole, once you meet Henry and Sam, you have this escape portion where you stay up or you go to sleep in this apartment and then you break out at night and there's a little gunfight there and they're chasing you with that big tank thing again. You have to run away. Then you get caught in the river and taken down river. And then you get out and you find this boat that looks like it's crashed into the shore. And there's a note on there from a guy named Ish. And it's like a journal page where he's talking about he came on to the beach and he's looking for people and he didn't know what happened. Like he came back and he didn't realize how bad it was. As far as like there's nobody alive or whatnot. So then he wanders into the underground sewer tunnels in Pittsburgh and then into that facility and he creates like a safe haven. So because he can lock all the doors. So you find these notes throughout and then eventually Ish gets like lonely and he meets the other guy and I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. I was trying to remember it, but it's gone. They had 2 names on that. So he meets him. They create this thing and then eventually they start to let people in and they set up pretty much a little colony to where there's like a rec area, there's showers, they're set up, they have running water, they have some level of semblance of power because they have generators in there. And then they have, you can see there's like a school area. There's like the player, like that shot where they're playing soccer with the goal on the wall. That's exactly out of the game. And you get this story of how what happened is they build this community and Ish and this other guy, they would go out and get supplies and they would keep people safe. Well, at some point they write this story about how they let the wrong person in, or somebody came back from a run. I don't remember which one. It's been so long, but they bring in the infection inside the facility. Then everybody gets turned, and it's nuts. There's parts in the game where, for example, there's a part where you walk into this room and there's this tarp laying on the ground. It just looks like it's covering some bunch of stuff. And you're like, whatever. Well, you can see it's kind of like a school. There's like the paintings on the wall, like you saw on the show. And then there's a guy, this skeleton sitting on the floor with a gun in his hand. And there's a note strapped to it, like in his other hand. And you pick it up and it reads, and it talks about the fact that he and these kids were locked in this room. And then on the floor, you finally realize what's going on is underneath that tarp is bodies of children. And it says in paint on the floor, they didn't suffer. So in order to keep them from being turned or killed by the infected, they did what they had to do. And so it's a really rough piece, but that's what it was a nod to that storyline of Ish and developing that little colony, so to speak. So yeah, it was rough. Yeah, Gray. Poor Joey tried to save him and Henry. I mean, yeah, that piece with Henry, that's a rough one. And the range of emotions that you watch Henry go through from, you're not going to unalive Sam, even though he's turned, and then, oh God, we have to. And then what did I do? Like that, when he asked that question, you're just like, oh no, there's only one. And Casey immediately was like, I would have done the same thing, I think. And I'm like, I can't imagine most people wouldn't in that situation. You know what I mean? If you trade places with Henry and in that situation, I don't think that either one of them could have figured out being without the other at that point. So, yeah. Charles, one thing I really enjoyed was Henry saw Joel shooting at the – sorry, I got something in my way here. The locals, and then briefly locking in on his face. Yeah. It was a
cool moment.
Yeah, it was. Very cool moment. I liked his reaction better in the show. It rang really true. Yeah, I agree. Like the actor they chose, well, both actors to play Henry and Sam, I thought were really fantastic at portraying that relationship that they had. And then at the end, the reactions. And it was one thing that they added to the end that was really heartbreaking for me was because in the game, Ellie doesn't know that Sam's been bitten. That whole trying to heal him scene, like with her blood, was not there. And that part is just like, because I mean, you have to think that a 14-year-old girl that's grown up in this post-apocalyptic world doesn't have the level of education to understand that that's not going to work, right? So for her she's trying her best to make that work. And that just level of despair that we as the audience members have that knowledge of, that's not how that works. That's not going to function that way. It's just heartbreaking to know she's really trying. She's found someone, there's a couple of people that she really trusts and wants to be around, and this kid that she can relate to and have fun with instead of always having to be an adult around an adult, that I loved that addition to it, because it was like, oh, just one extra level of heartbreak throughout. And yeah, Gray, Bella Ramsey acting in this episode, especially in that end, like outrageous. She's been great throughout the show, though. Like I've always worried who they were going to pick to play Bella. Like Joel, fine. Don't get me wrong. Pedro Pascal's killing it as Joel. But an adult man that a little gruff and an asshole, you can probably find a dozen people to play this and play them pretty well. Ellie, that one was frightening for me, because Ellie carries the game. You play as Joel in the first game, but she's what makes the game interesting, because she's taking this hardened man and softening him up.
Interesting. With how little voice acting I feel like Pedro Pascal's had to do so far. I mean, he's talked a little bit more of some of these episodes, but I'm like, man, what if they put in Keanu Reeves? Could have had some sick action scenes, I'm just saying, for the amount of things he's actually said, he, like Tia said, he just needs to have say some good one-liners have a little bit of emotion behind it. I've laughed because I was like, oh man, maybe Keanu could have done that. But I know, like Pedro Pascal, especially this episode with how the emotion you could feel when he was like, Henry, no, like you felt it. Keanu couldn't do that in that way, no way. But
no,
the shooting scenes and everything can't do it like
he's
he
on
can.
it.
Keanu would have been most excellent.
Well played. He didn't have the body type for it though, because Joel's a big dude. And Keanu's tall, but he's skinny. This dude, yeah, Pedro's got the
put a fat suit on him.
There you go.
That's what they did in Bill and Ted, the new one, anyways.
I know, fat suit and then a muscle suit. It's good stuff. How do we always end up talking about this shit?
Because Mattson secretly likes Bill and Ted.
I know.
I didn't bring it up.
I'm convinced.
You brought up Keanu, and then you brought up Bill and Ted.
It's true. You did bring it up.
I didn't bring up Bill and Ted, though.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't say it.
Technically, you said
Bill and Ted, Alec.
I said most excellent. I didn't say Bill and Ted.
Okay, well, you might as well be quoting. You are quoting the movie, so you might as well be saying it.
All right, Charles. More great cinematography in the episode. Night and tunnel shots all looked outstanding. Some parts reminded me of Chernobyl. Yeah, I mean, for sure, you can definitely see the impact that Craig Mazin is having on the show and the game, like the visuals especially, because there is a lot that looks a lot like Chernobyl in that section. Yeah, great. Keanu Reed's younger, even though he's older. That's fair. He is much older than Pedro Pascal, but he does read a little younger than that. But they did dress up Pedro quite well to look like a 56-year-old Joel. That is one thing that every time I see him, I'm like, God, he does look a lot like the character. So it's good stuff. Overall, I think it was a great episode. I think it was a good addition. Like I said, for me, the gaming, there's some weird shit, but that's a me thing. I don't think it's a detriment to the show. I think it's my take on it because of I've played the game so many times. That piece was missing for me, and I didn't like it. And I felt that Kathleen's character was unnecessary to me. But like Alec and Charles have both said, that haven't played the game, that it worked because it gives you a face and somebody to hate. So, any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
Still riding the train, loving it.
Okay, should be interesting next week. Get to see Jackson. I'll leave it at that. I'm interested to see how that goes and beyond. I'm also wondering if they're going to change the final city, but I'll leave that one alone too. Oh yeah, Charles, one detail I really enjoyed was with the subtitles. Did y'all notice how they slightly dissolve? Yeah, they had some of that that fonty. The font was from the game where there's like little pieces of the words missing. I did notice that little subtle detail only on the second and third watch, but I did notice. I didn't catch it on the first one. I was too busy watching the rest of it and missed that. That's why I watch it multiple times though, so that I can catch shit like that. But it's a good point. And I think that's a great detail to finish up on, is the amount of detail that these guys are putting into the show and making sure that it's done right. Setting a new bar for video game adaptations, that's for sure. I don't think you can do it without you're someone from the game, the actual game world being involved anymore. You just have to have that connection to make it make sense. And a good writer like Craig Mazin, because he's outstanding. So, all right, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Thank you to everyone listening to this, our review of the 5th episode of The Last of Us. We appreciate you all. I appreciate the important lessons that The Last of Us teaches, like preparedness during Bill and Frank's story, or not talking to strangers, as we learned during episode 4 when Ellie and Joel first enter Kansas City. Episode 5 teaches us about how not to procrastinate your problems, because they might crawl out of the sewer and murk your militia to absolute pieces. It's rough being a rebel leader, and Kathleen shouldn't have procrastinated her bloater problem. Hindsight truly is 20/20, like they say. You can check out all of our content of The Last of Us, including the first ever What's Our Verdict video game playthrough, where JJ is playing through in tandem with the show. We normally go live on Tuesdays for that, but due to travel constraints, we will have to pull double duty following Tuesday. So we're not going live tomorrow. Tuesday after that, we should be back. An easy way to keep track of our hectic schedule, though, is to just subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and let us ping you to let you know what is going on. Special thanks to our patron, Twerking She-Hulk. Well played, sir, as that is both shorter and easier to say, but might be our least favorite name of yours yet. If you enjoy the content we put out and would like to support the pod more directly and gain access to exclusive content, consider joining us on Patreon, where every dollar earned helps pay off Mattson's crushing gambling debts. Well, without further ado, I will turn the time back over to the mauling mammoth, the colossus of clout, JJ.
I love it. Gray, that was my exact reaction when I pulled out the Patreon and saw the new name. I was like, Alec, you earned that shit, my friend.
I did.
And I was quick to let him know.
Mm-hmm. The disapproval could be felt through the words that JJ texted.
Yeah, I said, Charles changed his name again, and I hate you for it, and I love him for it. Love it. Well, it's been fun, and it's been real. And actually, it's been real fun, too. So, yeah, we'll, unfortunately, most likely you will not see us tomorrow. I am going to test one thing when I get to Dallas. We'll see what happens, but I doubt I'm going to be able to manage it through a laptop and a remote play, but we'll see. If so, then I'll hop on and play tomorrow. If not, then it'll be the week after and we'll get through the thing. So yeah, with that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Vista, baby.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!